Hello, and welcome to Ipsa Dixit, a podcast on legal scholarship. I'm your host, Brian L. Fry, Spears Gilbert Associate Professor of Law at the University of Kentucky College of Law. And my guest today is Eric E. Johnson, Associate Professor of Law at the University of Oklahoma College of Law. And we're going to be talking about Eric's Museum of Intellectual Property, which is absolutely fabulous and actually inspired me to create my own mini museum of intellectual property here in Kentucky. But Eric's the original. And so
okay. Excellent.
And so I wanted to talk to him about the museum, how it came into existence, how he uses it and thinks about it, and how it relates to his teaching and scholarship. So welcome, Eric, to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Excellent to be here.
Yeah. So let's just start with the beginning. Maybe describe the museum to my listeners and say a little bit of something about how it came into existence, how did it get started, like what were the first things you started collecting and why, and so on.
Sure. I was teaching patent law as an adjunct at Whittier Law School in California. And I think we were reading the cases, and I thought, I may have some of this stuff lying around my garage, which, does not bode well for the state of my garage. I didn't even have a garage at that point in my life. Whatever, laying around in a box or something. Okay, so I found some golf balls at a thrift store that were talked about in a case. I think I found a wrench in my tools. And I don't think I had a big grand plan, but once you get carried away with an idea. So I just got, what else can I get? What else that would be? I think it's great to be able to look at something. Case books are hard, man. They have no pictures. It's just words. They don't even have pictures on the cover. Like if you get a math book, at least you get the obligatory skyscraper on the front. Like you can build a skyscraper if you learn math. With a case book, you get nothing. You just get, So I think it's fun to have something tangible to look at. And so once I started doing that, and here's the thing about having a museum of intellectual property, it's really easy compared to having a museum of any other kind of law, because intellectual property is stuff that can be reproduced. The whole reason we have intellectual property law is to have an artificial legal barrier to stop people from reproducing something. By definition, intellectual property comes in when something can be easily reproduced. So these are things that have been on the market. They're findable in thrift stores, they're findable in antique malls, sometimes they're findable in your garage, or of course eBay is where I've gotten most of the stuff. And someone asked me where I got my stuff for my museum, and I said, well, I've got most of it on eBay. He was very disappointed. Well, that's too easy. Well, I'm going to spend my whole life in antique malls to just to make it hard, just to have the pleasure of suffering. Anyway, so in a couple of ways, it was easy to do that compared to other collections, I think, because now there's eBay, and because intellectual property by its very nature, you're talking about things that have been mass reproduced. Nonetheless, I think that it is a service to students and to people to have, people can't visit, for people to have the pictures, to be able to see it, try to take some good clean pictures. And it's fun to have a mini field trip for the students and to be able to see this stuff. Because I think it fires the imagination. I've always thought, I'll let you ask a question at some point, Brian, I'm sorry. I've always thought that the facts are the most important part of the case. Law students, I think, tend to start trying to get past the facts as quickly as they can to get to the statement of black letter law, the holding. But it's the facts that motivate that. And looking at a tangible artifact is the best way of engaging with the facts.
Yeah, no, I have had the same experience, and it's one of the reasons that I found the idea of sort of programmatically pursuing finding the actual objects at issue in cases so inspiring, right? Because, as you say, I found that students often don't want to grapple with the nature of the actual object we're talking about. And when you put it in their hands, they can't help it, right? So
True.
It's like they're looking at it, and all of a sudden they have to be like, oh, this is a real tangible product that we're talking about, not just some abstraction.
There's got to be something to fight over. Our whole system of law is based on resolving disputes. It's not about creating doctrine in the abstract. It can't be done that way. The whole common law system assumes that. It has to be driven by facts, has to be driven by the personalities of the parties and something that they care about, that they want to fight over. And students need to confront that to really get into it.
Yeah. So in building your collection, did you find your curatorial choices driven primarily by the cases you were teaching in class, or by things you found interesting on their own right, or a little bit of both?
I started trying to get objects from the cases I was teaching, but then I realized that's not the best way to do it, or it wasn't the way I wanted to do it, because that's really driven by the casebook, a particular casebook. So I started looking for objects from important cases, the leading cases that drove the doctrine, and I tried to look for objects that represented something about intellectual property, even if they weren't part of a case.
Maybe you could describe a few of the things that you found and that you pursued, and why it was that you wanted to add particular things to your collection.
Well, the thing that I immediately wanted was a sign from the Traffix case, Traffix, which is a Supreme Court case. There was a road sign. These are the huge orange signs you see by the side of the interstate when they're doing construction, and the sign will say workers ahead, or slow down, something like that. These huge fabric, plastic, orange signs. And they aren't permanently set into the ground. So they have to have very wide legs, but they can also blow over in the wind. So this one firm came up with a spring design, so the bottom of the sign was held up not by columns, but by bendable springs, 2 springs. It was the dual spring design. They had a patent on it. The patent expired. So this rival firm, Traffix, started manufacturing the dual spring signs, and the other firm sued them. And the cause of action that they offered was trademark. People have started to associate the dual spring design with our sign, so it's a reputational advantage that we have. This is a really important concept that brings trademark and patent together. So it's interesting for both fields and helps to show how these things intersect. Trademark and patent and copyright, right of publicity, are all very distinct causes of action. They're all very distinct doctrines. But in the minds of businesses, they just want to shut down a competitor who's copying. So they'll grab whatever's off the shelf. And this is one of those cases that illustrates that. So I want to get one of those signs. So I called up. This is not something you can buy on eBay or find in your garage. So I called up Traffix and I asked them if they had a model of one of these signs, because they're huge. I just want a little model and wanted to buy it. And so I spoke to the person who picked up the phone, and she said, "No, I don't think I have such a thing, but let me put you through to our boss." I end up on the phone with the CEO of Traffix. He is excited to talk to me, because what I realized is that when a small, medium-sized business takes one of these cases to the Supreme Court, that is the biggest thing they're doing. I mean, that is a huge battle.
Yeah.
They are all in on something like that. So he was very happy to talk to me about it. Told me his story of the litigation. He said that You know, when I realized we're going to the Supreme Court, I thought, well, I'm going to get the best lawyer. So I asked around and I found this Supreme Court litigator named John Roberts. So I hired him. Yeah.
No way! I didn't even realize John Roberts. Wow.
Yeah, he argued the Traffix case. You should listen to it off of Oye.
Wow.
You know, it has all the audio he was an amazing Supreme Court litigator. Superlative job. Anyway, so Traffix, I said, so after hearing all these stories and stuff, I said, well, you know, I'd really love to have a little model of the sign, like a sales model or a demonstration. He said, well, we don't have anything like that, but I'll send you some. So a couple weeks later, this thing comes delivery. It's like in 3 different boxes.
Oh, wow.
It is enormous. What is it? I don't know. It's probably like 5-6 feet across, up and down, and then you know. So anyway, that's my biggest item.
What's the smallest item in the museum, do you think?
No. I have some golf balls. I have a pin from. What is that case? It's a trademark case. It's a little lapel pin.
Ah.
Whatever. I have a lot of.
You have quite a large collection.
I think I have about 200, and yeah. So.
Were there any other items in the collection that you were especially excited to find, or were especially difficult to find?
I've got the Air Pirates comic book,
wow.
which I'm pretty proud of. Because
those are rare.
Yeah, and you're competing against comic book collectors who are brutal.
Yeah.
So to get in there and get that, I'm pretty happy with that. That depicts Mickey Mouse smuggling dope and a lot of
other unsavory things.
Unsavory stuff, and that was a Ninth Circuit case on copyright fair use. So that was pretty neat. I have a Qualitex press pad.
Nice.
So you can get up close and personal and see the Qualitex green gold color, which must be experienced in person.
Yeah, I love that case.
I got an old Betamax VCR. Doesn't work, but that is heavy. That is very hard to schlep around. That is very hard to move. But I think it's interesting to see the size of it and feel the weight of it and see how. It's like a tank and difficult to use, and it's just amazing to think that the motion picture industry saw this as something that was going to kill Hollywood.
Yeah, like an existential threat, and then it turned out to be the greatest thing that ever happened.
Yeah, sure, because it made their whole library of movies into a new revenue stream, which gave them a whole new reason to try to keep extend copyright and keep it going.
But it must make it so much more real for your students to see what an actual Betamax player looks like and what the tapes look like.
I think so. I think it helps in all kinds. Well, it has to help in all kinds of ways that you can't put into words. Mm-hmm. Because if you could put them into words, you wouldn't need the artifact.
Yeah. Are there objects in the museum that you've been interested to acquire or that you're looking to acquire because of their relation to your scholarship?
Not so much because of their relation to my scholarship, no.
But there are things you're particularly looking for?
Yeah, there's some things I'm working on.
Yeah, like for example?
I don't know that I should say that.
Keep it secret so the market doesn't...
Well, that is true. The market can... I also don't want to say, set myself up for disappointment.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I've got a large amount of stuff now, so I'm really working on some targeted things that are hard to get. But I've got some really old things. I've got the book from Folsom v. Marsh.
Oh, really?
From the 1700s.
Very cool.
I have Some things just come to you. Like my mother-in-law got me a fake Rolex watch when she came from China that she purchased off the streets of Shanghai. So that's a nice. That's a nice representative object.
Yeah, I feel like some of that stuff that I would love to actually see the object is just...
I don't know if I do have the book from Folsom v. Marsh. I got the computer here. I don't. I have... that's wrong. Millar versus Taylor. 1769.
Wow.
No, Folsom v. Marsh I want. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like some things I feel like, when they got suppressed, it's just really hard to find the original thing. Like I always wanted to find a bottle of Second Chances by Tehran, the
Oh yeah.
but it's
Yeah,
like
some things got killed early, so one thing that I can't find, pretty much given up on at this point, is The Cat Is Not in the Hat. The O.J. Simpson parody as the Dr. Seuss book, like that is
just really tough.
That's nowhere that I could find. I did get a Three Stooges print. And I don't think there's so many of those.
No. Actually, a friend of mine found that at a thrift store. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was pretty lucky. I've been looking for one too, and they are hard to find.
Yeah, they're a little hard to find.
Yeah.
I've got a Franklin Ace 1000 Apple II clone.
Nice. Wow, that's a cool one to see too, I imagine.
Yeah.
Comparing it to the actual Apple II is they really do look, the circuit boards look almost identical.
Well, I haven't opened them up. Yeah. See, I should open them up and take some pictures. That's a good point.
Yeah. Wow, very
Yeah,
cool.
I think I was prone to want to collect something because my dad always collected things. When I was a little kid, he had a collection of beer cans that took up an entire room of our basement. He's not a beer drinker, but he liked the cans, the graphic design, and he built these special shelves to collect all these beer cans. And once he got them all, then he sold them all off. And he started collecting old general store merchandise to try to recreate the general store that he grew up in Arkansas. So I always admired his collections and the ability to have your imagination fired about being in a different place and time. One of America's best free amusements is antique malls. To just go there and walk around and see stuff. Go there with your kids and talk about, your parents used to have this, or now increasingly it's things that I had when I was a kid. But
yeah, the objects really tell stories in fascinating ways, and I think that's one of the reasons I love your museum concept so much, is that it's like they're objects, like so many other objects, they tell stories, but these ones tell really focused and directed stories, in that each one was the subject of a really, like a pitched battle, as it were.
Yeah, and some of them that aren't very old, it's instructive that they're not very old. I think you read cases in a case book and you get this sense of its history. It all blends together. If it's from 1969 or 2001 or 1832, once it gets into the same font in the case book, it just looks like dead letter. And then you look at some of these things and you realize, well, this is not that long ago with a lot of these things, and you can see how they were worth fighting over.
Yeah. Are there any objects that, when you acquired them, you were surprised by the object itself, or that you felt like having the physical object really changed your experience of the case in a way that was meaningful in terms of teaching or understanding it?
I don't know. This is why people come into an interview with bullet points of points they're going to try to make. I don't know. That's hard.
Or ones that you were particularly happy to find?
Well, lots of them I was happy to find. I like my generic beer cans. Yeah. Before there were store brands, there was generic. This was a trend for a while in the 80s to try to save money.
The yellow cans with the black letters on
Yeah. So I got a couple of those. I think that helps to tell a story, even though that's not from a case.
Yeah, a story about trademark and distinctiveness. I mean, in a weird way, it was incredibly distinctive, and I remember that.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird because so much of that generic packaging would be a great trademark in the sense of being inherently distinctive.
Yeah.
And I've looked at those cans and I've tried to see, well, were they trying to claim this? And they weren't, which is as it should be. If they're going to say it's generic, then it really should be generic. But all the manufacturers had a different look of their generic product. So in many ways, it wasn't really generic.
Yeah. That's kind of ironic, isn't it? Really.
It is.
I mean, it's like distinctively generic.
Yeah. I got my Swiss Navy knife that I purchased on the streets of New York. Switzerland doesn't have a navy because they're landlocked.
Yeah.
So that was a funny one. That was someone who was trying to not run afoul of the Swiss Army. So they just picked Swiss Navy.
Swiss Navy. Oh my. So you just always have your eyes peeled for when you see.
I do. I've picked things up in stores.
Yeah.
I have, just not so much for historical value or because they're with a case, unless it's in an antique mall, but that's very rare.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you find things that are really illustrative. I guess one of my favorite things that I picked up was the cylinder from Festo. I got one from SMC and one from Festo.
Yeah, I always wondered about that. I mean, like when they describe it in the case, I honestly have a very hard time.
Yeah, it's something you cannot understand without looking at the picture. And once you see the picture, you can imagine how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of things are like that. It's
Are they large or small?
No, they're about the size of your arm. The ones that I have, I imagine they could come in many different sizes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, no, that would be really helpful to have, I would imagine. I mean, I've seen photographs, but I feel like even like bringing in the object would be that much more helpful.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting.
That's cool. Where did you find that?
No, got it off of eBay. It's not that great of a story. I found some. I've got probably one of my favorite items is the Pro CD set.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I got it from 1996, which I think would have been the one that Zeidenberg had. And anyone who's read Pro CD versus Zeidenberg, well, at least 99% of people who read it are agog. It's a horrible case. Can't stand it. Always gets me going, which is good. It's a good teaching case, I guess. For that reason. Now, I've had one object that a couple people have requested to borrow. I think maybe one for use in litigation. But I've learned it's not a good idea to lend these things out.
Oh no.
I did lend one out and haven't gotten it back. But the thing that I did not lend out that some people have wanted me to send to them is the Sports Tracks pager from Motorola versus NBA.
Yeah, those are hard to find.
Yeah, they are hard to find. But yeah, the little pager that would tell you sports scores that was going to destroy the sports leagues. And they lost that battle, but I think they're increasingly winning the war with trying to control all forms of reporting about themselves, led by the NFL.
Yeah, that's cool. I've always wanted to have one of those, but I haven't been able to find one.
Yeah. Oh, the Nagel print on the tile. I got that.
Oh wow. From ART?
Yeah. And that's interesting to look at it because the whole idea there was these Nagel prints. If you've seen the cover of Duran Duran's Rio album, that's one of the Nagel prints. So very, very popular in the 80s. Instantly, it's an icon 80s illustration. So the defendant got these coffee table books and then just razor bladed the pages out and took each page and mounted it on a ceramic tile. Why? I don't know. Ceramic tiles are really hard to hang on a wall because they're heavy and they're breakable. Yeah, I found one of those. It's weird. It's interesting. It allows you to see
what exactly it was that they were doing.
Yeah, and well, that's a thing that once you look at it, you still don't understand. Why would anyone want this?
Yeah,
that's not to slam Patrick Nagel. It's just that mounting it on the
tile.
On the tile is.
I never really got that either.
Pretty weird. Yeah.
But helpful to see what it really looks like, because really, I mean, so much of that case is about describing what it was that they were doing and asking whether or not that was a derivative or transformed the underlying work.
Yeah, are you just doing what you're doing with the copy that you own, or have you made a derivative work? And you really do need to see the thing to have a sense of it.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
You talk about curating things. So I had the whole collection out at the University of North Dakota Library. Mm-hmm. We had a big building renovation, so I had to pack it up. And now I've moved down to the University of Oklahoma, but a lot of it's in boxes, and so I'm putting in a new display at the University of Oklahoma. In a few months, come see it. It'll be in the library. But I've opened up some boxes and I've had some damage.
Oh no!
I'm embarrassed to say. I had a can of Canfield's Diet Chocolate Fudge Soda. It froze.
Oh no!
Exploded.
Oh no!
Did some other things. So you're interviewing me about this. I feel in some ways kind of bad as having not been a great steward of some of these objects have gotten a little bit of damage.
Yeah. Well, I
really regret. It's museum curation's a real thing. It's hard, and I've tried to learn little bits here and there. I wish there was a course I could take. There are some things that I bought some of those white gloves. Mm-hmm. There are some things that I try to handle with the gloves.
Yeah. Well, we should establish like a code of best practices.
I know we do. Yeah, you should, because you should. I'm sure some of your friends could. Yeah, I'm terrible. You could bring me up on charges in front of the ethics board for the first thing. But like that. Oh man, that Diet Chocolate Fudge Soda Canfields. I don't think I'm ever going to get another one of those. I mean, that was really lucky to get that. Yeah. I mean, I still have the can. It's a little, damaged. It's still what it is. But
Yeah. Well, I commend you on the museum, which I hope to be able to visit in person sometime.
Well, thanks. Yes.
And I hope that other intellectual property scholars and interested parties will pursue their own curatorial efforts in the way that you have,
or a more responsible way.
Because I really think that, it reflects a kind of a vision of intellectual property law and what it means and the storytelling around intellectual property law. And of course, you've done people the service of putting images of many of the objects you've collected online. So we'll go ahead and direct people to the website so they can.
Museumofintellectualproperty.org.
Yeah.
So I took me a lot of time to, and there's more that needs to go up there, but trying to get good, clean photos of things on a white background is time consuming, sweat of the brow. It's not very creative, but it does take some time. But that's available for anyone's slideshows and.
Yeah, well, I know that I've taken much advantage
of
your photographs and shared them with my students, and I look forward to sharing them with my listeners. So
excellent.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you, Brian.
All right.